Nice to meet you. Hi, folks. What a privilege it is on behalf of this extraordinary community of change makers and risk takers and frontline warriors to welcome you, all of those things, to your first Skoll World Forum.
My first one. I'm really excited to be here. And, I've been hearing about it forever, but I have a very special relationship to the forum, even though I haven't ever been here. I took my very first film that I made a film that I made that I didn't pay for with all of my own money. That's a big thing. This money came from money that I had put into my first film that we made a little bit, and then I put into the second film, and then I put into the third film. So this was my fourth little film. I was still working a full-time job. I hadn't really committed to the idea that I could be a filmmaker and make a living from it. And I took this film to the Sundance Film Festival, which is a huge, huge thing for a filmmaker. And I'd been rejected 7 times before. So we finally got in, and we got into the big category, the competition category for narrative features. And after the first screening, there weren't a lot of distributors out after in the lobby trying to get the film, because the film was about a Black woman whose husband was in prison, and it was about the wives and families of the incarcerated. Not hot subject matter for the studios. And so, but I came out of that screening, and there were two groups of people there waiting for me. On one side, it was a group of executives, and they were from a company called the Weinstein Company at the time. And the other was just a guy, like one guy. I'm telling you, one guy with a scarf and just like a jacket. He was sitting in the corner, and my agent that was working with me at the time said, "It's them and it's him." And I went over and I sat on this bench with him, and he told me from his heart what he thought about the film and how he thought that it could really change things and get a conversation going. I was like, I want to get a conversation going. And it was Jeff Skoll. It was Jeff Skoll. One guy. And Participant was just starting to get going. And so we ended up going with Participant, and we held hands. My distribution company and Participant put out the film together instead of me giving it to those other people. And that really has been the way that we've proceeded since, trying to hold hands with like-minded folk.
Right. And from those first small films, and Jeff Skoll is your distribution partner. Clearly you were connected around the notion that narrative change was possible, and that films, stories, well told, as yours are, can compel social change. He created Participant Media on that principle, and you have proven it over and over again with your films. Share some of the examples in which you have seen that happen, stories changing and impacting culture and ecosystems.
Well, it's not just my films. I mean, I've had mind-blowing experiences of folks walking up to me around the world in different, weird contexts. I was in a grocery store in Berlin, and, a man's walking up to me who doesn't look like he would watch anything that I've done. And he's coming up to me, and I know it's going to be something. I'm not sure what it's going to be. I'm thinking, maybe Selma, maybe. It could be a Selma, wonder what he's going to say. It's like, well, maybe it's a 13th, or I don't know. It's a little, I'm not sure. And he comes up to me, and I don't know if any of you know, but I had a TV show for 7 years on American television called Queen Sugar. Now this is the blackest show. I mean, for those of you who know Queen Sugar, it is a very black African-American farming family in New Orleans, Louisiana. It's about the land and black community. And this man walked up to me and he said, "I just love Aunt Vi," which is the matriarch of the family, and proceeded to talk to me all about the show. And so, about how it opened up a whole new world for him that he never knew it existed. But for me, when we think about social impact and what film can do, I just really believe, and because we've seen it, we've all seen how film can literally change a whole societal view of a thing. You know, growing up for me, AIDS was I was so terrified of it because in my community, you know, it was running rapid around the world at the time, but in our community, whether it was with lack of understanding of how all the pieces were put together early on. And I remember the film Philadelphia. And I remember how that film started to change even the thought of, can I touch this person? Can I talk to this person? Just that. And when I look back now, there was a study done and talking about how Philadelphia, along with a couple of the key moments in American pop culture, started to shift the way that the country thought about people with HIV and AIDS, right? It was a series of shows that were done on the Oprah Winfrey Show that Oprah Winfrey did. It was work around musicians who were speaking out about it. And it was arts and entertainment that started to shift it. Even now, recently in the United States, within the last 5 years, our view of the trans community, right? Like, it's been a quick turn when you think of it on the long scale of what that community has had to endure in terms of indignity, right? In that people are at least calling or identifying it with the proper words as a base level, being able to think with empathy about these things. 4 years in the study I read that is tracking how something like Orange is the New Black and Transparent and these shows are starting to shift things. So, you know, Maria was talking earlier about information and how can you have democracy if you cannot have a steady base of information? I would invite us to think films and television provide information. They can nourish us and they can malnourish us. And for so often, we're looking at malnourishment. We're looking at folks that are putting box office before impact. And what we like to think about at Array is another metric for success. And how do we start to get studios and folks that finance to think in another way about what is a successful film? Yeah. Is a successful film a film that made its money back and made you more money? Or is a successful film a film that continues to echo through the culture and shift the way that you think about a thing?
Which is exactly what your films have done.
But they won't let you do one unless you do the other. You know, you can't make another film if your last one didn't make money, and that's the challenge.
Yeah, you're so generous, Ava, that you didn't mention any of your films or series that have also led to the kind of changes that you're talking about. And I know that one of the things you decided early on, this is something I think this community will understand deeply, is that you needed what you call liberated territory. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, it's actually, thank you for bringing that up. That's actually a term coined by the filmmaker Haile Gerima. It's an Ethiopian filmmaker who was a longtime professor at Howard University, who is a gorgeous filmmaker who's made incredible films that never found their way into Hollywood. Hollywood basically rejected his voice. It was too radical, it was too revolutionary. And so his films were put out, he put his films out on his own, self-distribution, which was how I started. And he has a term, he says, you know, you have to have your own liberated territory. And for him, he owns a small bookstore called Sankofa in Washington, D.C. If anyone's been, it's incredible. And that always got me thinking, I said, Ava, my sister, you have to have your own space. So we have a 4-building campus that we own in Echo Park, historic Filipino town in Los Angeles, which I'm very proud of. And I always think I can always retreat there. If the studios kick me out, I can just go there. And that's where we work. But also liberated territory is just the place within your work where you feel most free. And I've found that I have to keep that as a barometer, because I can go off and I can make a Wrinkle in Time and I can make, I don't know, a Jay-Z and Beyonce video, whatever it is. But the core of my safe place is the place where I feel the most free, and the place where I feel the most free is the place where I do the most dynamic, propulsive work, I think. And so it's about finding that for yourself, especially those of us who work within institutions and systems that sometimes ensnare our freedom of thought, our imaginations. It's important to always have that as your go-to place. So I would invite everyone to think of, what is your liberated territory up here? Where's the place where you can always go and know which direction you should proceed.
And as an artist and innovator and entrepreneur, there is deep understanding of how important that is. But for you, it was a bigger mission as well, not only to have the freedom to be in your own liberated territory, to create a studio where you could do the films you wanted to do, but you also wanted to change the whole ecosystem, which again is something this community sets out to do. And to do that, Array had to be more than a studio of one's own, our liberated territory. You put certain guardrails and principles in place. Can you share some of those?
Yeah, I mean, we really didn't have a choice. There wasn't a lot of excitement about me in the place where I work. Wasn't a lot of excitement about the kinds of films that I was interested in making. And so in order to continue to make the films and TV, something like When They See Us or Queen Sugar or 13th or Selma or whatever it was, I had to literally disrupt a bunch of different aspects of the system in order to not only make the things I wanted to make, but in the way that I wanted to make them. Like, there's no win for me to walk on the set and be the only woman or the only person of color. Like that's not a win. That's not successful just because I'm there. So it was really important for us to say, I was always saying, well, where's the crew? You couldn't find any other Black people. There's no other woman that can do anything in these 200 positions. None? Except like serve us food. And that was what I was finding. And so we created Array Crew, which was a database filled with all kinds of people from all kinds of places who do all kinds of things to combat the myth that there are none. So we built it, right? We built it, and it is a database that's used by, I'm very serious when I say every single studio and network uses Array Crew, all of them. And there are over 800 shows in it, everything you watch, Succession, I don't know, Fantasy Island, whatever people are watching. And we can see them every day going in, looking for a gaffer, looking for a grip. And everyone in it's women, it's people of color, it's LGBTQ people, it's veterans, it's older people who can still work. Can you believe it?
Yeah,
you can still work after 50 and do something.
I appreciate that, Ava.
And so it's all kinds of people. So that's Array Crew, but also something like Array 101. I mean, okay, so they're banning books and they're telling you what you can read and what you can teach. And, that is what we call one of our pillars at Array. We say film is fuel and food and fire, right? It's fuel because film can propel you and move you forward. Food because it can grow you and nourish you. And fire because it can be used as a weapon to protect and defend. And I believe that film in this state, with all that's being taken out of our education system right now and the way that's being remade, and Maria talked so beautifully about, a lie told 100 times becomes truth. Well, you can combat that by continuing to tell the truth. And how do we do that? What is the most dynamic, the biggest voice you can have, I feel, that reaches the most people with the lowest threshold is film and television to me. And we still have the opportunity there to teach. If you can't get it in the library, okay, I'm going to make a movie of that book and you can get it on Netflix, Disney, whatever you're watching, If I can't, if they can't teach it in the schools, well, how do I create the educational material so that your parents can teach it, or so that you can teach yourself and read it and figure it out on your own, free online? So that's what we do through Array 101. So we have Array 101, we have Array Green. I mean, film sets are so wasteful, you don't even understand. I mean, it's
oh yes, we do.
It's oh yes, these people understand. These are the people who understand.
Yes,
the amount of waste. And so Array Green is an initiative. We went to the studios and we said, hey, we really want to be more responsible in the way that we make films and televisions. Can you give us your protocols? Can you tell us kind of what you're working with? And we got like blank stares. Protocols? What do you mean protocols? We don't know. We recycle. There's a green bin if you throw it in there.
Combustible cups.
Yeah, combustible. Yeah, I mean, and so we start to put together our own protocols and have our own environmental stewards. And so all that to say, to make things that I wanted to make in the way that we wanted to make them, we had to disrupt systems and create our own ways of doing it. And they're small. I mean, these aren't huge programs, but it's the way that we work, and they've inspired other people to work that way.
I think they're not small. And they have changed the whole ecosystem. I mean, women insisting on women directors. I mean, all the ways in which Array has moved forward. But still to do the work, the big work, the work that you choose to do, the difficult stories to tell. It's still there still has to be funding coming from somewhere. And this community understands how hard it is sometimes to balance between the funding sources and the stories or the changes you want to make. How have you handled that balance in your life?
Well, it's difficult. I work in an industry that the metric for success is box office. So box office means you have to have these stars in it, and they have to be doing these things. And none of those things are recycling. Don't have to do anything about prison. Don't have to do anything about politics or race. They need to be like in superhero costumes, doing things like that. That is the metric for, we know that works. That's what we feel most comfortable with investing in. And if you're looking to have a career where you're doing things that are outside of that, it's much more challenging to find, especially if your protagonists are of color, if they're Black folk. I don't just go get Cate Blanchett and say, be in this movie. My protagonists, my leads are Black women, and Black men. And so on the scale of when they're looking at their investment, how that's going to do, unless they've got their shirt off or they're fighting something or they're being really funny, it's hard to get that money. And so we've had to think of new ways and new models to kind of push the idea forward to be able to freely make pictures. I mean, the one problem is when I was making films for the money I had, $50,000, I'd saved for a house and instead put that down payment on my first film and kept flipping that money over to make other films. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I didn't know how to make a film. I'd never gone to film school. Started making films in my early 30s. And I was just doing it all by hand. That was the time where I felt most free, but I didn't really know what I was doing. When I started to know what I was doing, they started throwing money at me. And throwing money at you keeps you within a system, right? So I can make When They See Us, but let's not show that part. Because that part probably, they're probably going to turn away off the service at that part. So let's not make it that hardcore. Should we cast this person in that role? Because that person can go on the poster. And you start making compromises. And before you know it, you're completely inside the system. And at the height of your filmmaking powers, you're making stuff the studio way.
But you haven't done that.
Well, not yet, but I was right on the edge. I was right on the edge. Let's do that. I was right on the edge of doing that when I really had to think about Highly Garima, Liberated Territory, and my heroes, and the ancestors, and the people who came before me, and started to think, let me step out of this now when I feel like I'm at the height of my filmmaking powers. Maybe not the height, like almost getting to a place where I feel very comfortable on a set and I know what I'm doing. I know what I want to say and I know how to get it done. And let me see if I can figure out a way to put the right amount of money with that creative velocity. And can those two meet together in a new model, which allows me to say the things that I want to say? And that meant I had to go ask for money, which is a really uncomfortable space. I was talking to some people earlier about it, because you've got this precious thing and you regard it in a certain way. And it's like, how will that be valued? And will this work? And it's worked for us. I just literally wrapped a film that I feel is the best thing I've ever made. And I made it feeling the most free I've ever felt, completely outside of the studio system. Now, the studio system in the entertainment industry may say too much, but it's made. It's done now. What are they going to do, spank me? I'm like, what's going to happen? Well, it's done. It's done.
If we can share exactly, you created a nonprofit entity for making this film, and
Array is a nonprofit overall,
right?
But within it, there was another piece of it, another way that we've put this model together that we're really excited about. That really connects film, philanthropy, and social impact in a way where the metric for success isn't box office, but there's new metrics. Yes, you make the money back. Yes, the social investment comes back, but it's also a calculation in terms of what is its impact and has it really shifted? Can it be a Philadelphia? Can it change? Can it put a new term into the lexicon? Change the way we think about things? And so if you could imagine if we can crack that, If you can crack that, imagine all of the issues that we all care about, and we start to put like propulsive cultural work, like artwork around it. Imagine how it can literally change the world and change people's minds. And so that's the experiment that we're currently in.
And this film is going to do that, so you have to say what the film is.
It's a film I just wrapped about 3 weeks ago. I'm editing now. It's based on Isabel Wilkerson's book, Caste. And it's a book that really speaks about, the origins of oppression and what's underneath the word, all of the isms that we talk about. And so I'm excited about it.
So, Ava, we have absolutely no time left.
No, that can't be. Oh, my gosh, it says 0. My goodness.
It does, but there's never 0 when you and I are on stage. So,
this one.
So I'm just going to push just a little bit for a very quick answer to a question that I've heard other people ask you. When you deal, as you do, with such tough subjects, when you look pain in the eye, as you do, every time you take one of these subjects, you reclaim history, you remind us of what we've gone through. And you even edited a Time magazine on optimism, and then look at where we are with the climate crisis, a racial reckoning, and so on, all the things that we work on at this community. So how do you maintain optimism, or are you optimistic? Let's start with that.
I'm very optimistic. I'm going to try to say it quickly. I guess I'm optimistic. I don't believe that all of this is happening to us. I believe it's happening for us. And that, Lonnie Holly, which is this wonderful artist who uses discarded material to create artwork, the fine artist, he says, don't think of discarded material as, debris and trash and garbage. Think of it as something to work with. You know what I mean? Something to work with, something to make something new out of. So this whole idea of narrative change, I really like to think of it as aesthetic force, because you can change people's minds and opinions through this work. And isn't that a glorious thing? That the possibility to shift and to pivot and to participate and to move, like that becomes ignited when times get hard. You look at the civil rights movement, it's a 12 years long movement, and so many horrible things were happening. It just propelled them forward. It made them want to move. And I really hope, we saw what happened, with what we call the racial reckoning. Something challenging, horrible had to happen to activate people, to instigate, to make people want to embrace dignity in a new way. And so I see all of this as, I see the banned books, I see Tennessee 3, and I was like, these people aren't very smart. You know what I mean? These people are not very smart. They don't understand the cause and effect of what they've done and what the Tennessee 3 will ignite. And so I just think we're smarter. You know what I mean? We're braver.
Well,
we're more brave. and what's not to be joyous about when we look at how much we survived and the shoulders that we stand on, and there's nothing else to be other than forward thinking.
And this is a community that practices that every day. Thank you, Ava.
Thank you very much.